Hey everybody, Dave Whitmarsh, Whitmarsh Consulting Group and Best Practice in HR. We're doing a CEO interview with um I will say somebody that is very respected from somebody that I respect very much. So I guess that makes Karen very respected, right? So Karen is actually I don't even know the name of your company, Karen, but you specialize in what?
Resilience, and my company's pretty easy. It's just Karen Dean Inc. I'm just me.
Yeah, so resilience, right? Would you have thought when you got into business that there was a market for that? I don't remember that being a field, when I was in high school saying I want to deal with that. So
No, and I've been in business for 25, almost 30 years. So 30 years ago, it wasn't something we talked about. And as life has happened, it is something we need to talk about more in the mental health space specifically, because really resilience does come down to your mental health. I'm finding it very important now in every organization that we need to be having these conversations. And I think people from my generation, which is probably close to the same age as you, um, we weren't taught how to be resilient. We were taught if we were emotional about anything, if we got hurt, it was suck it up, get over it, tough it out. And we don't now have the coping mechanisms to healthily deal with the hard things. And so many of us have turned to addictions and other not so healthy coping mechanisms, and that affects our workplaces. So I'm just out here trying to help have healthier workplaces, healthier people, which then become more successful people in our organizations and in their own personal lives.
yeah, you're so right. It's amazing when I look back. I played a little bit of sports in high school and how many times, I knew people that were injured or had concussions, right? And you know, just told, just get back out there, right?
Walk it
And
off.
yeah, walk it off and that's, physical, right? Not mental, but that was the mindset of my high school years in the 80s. It was just that. And so I remember watching a video just a couple of years ago of a kid on the floor crying over something, right? And it was just like something that, you know, the old me would have said, stupid kid, it's just a teddy bear, right? Who cares? We'll get
Right.
you another one or whatever. And the person went down and said, how does that make you feel? Right. And it was just like, that was never something that would have ever crossed my mind to ask that question and actually get down to the kid's level and say
Mm.
that. And so there's a huge gap of as far as awareness that needs to be done. And I'm happy that you're, trying your hardest to do that. So when did the word like resiliency, w- when did it become really even a word that we used in the workplace or what was it called before?
I'm not sure what we called it before because I don't think it was ever talked about. Um, as you know, my experience has always been you leave work at work and home at home, and that's how we've always been taught. And I think the pandemic really brought it home that that's not going to work anymore because all of a sudden we were working at home and our kids were screaming behind us on our Zoom calls. And, it just brought everything together. And I think we had to start realizing that if someone's going through a really hard divorce or someone's kid has cancer or any really traumatic things, it's going to affect them at work. And we can't expect them to walk into work and not have any emotions surrounding that and just drop it and be 100% that day. And I think we also need to understand that our people do give us 100% every day, but what 100% looks like on a really great day is not going to be as productive as their 100% that they have to give on a really hard day. And I think it's about changing mindsets of, what we expect of our people. And I think when we meet them at the level they're at, they become more successful because we all just want to be seen and we want to be understood. And I think when we give that to our teams, they become more productive than if we are the, hard nosed, I want this result today. I don't care what you're going through, get it done. I don't think we get the best results that way. But if we give them that understanding, they'll give us 150% if they know that they're seen and understood. We're going to get way more productive employees and therefore way more successful businesses.
Yeah, it's funny. I interviewed somebody from I should remember his name, Stigma Zero, another Canadian, and he said, it's if you have an employee that's missed a couple weeks of work because they have a broken leg, they come back in and you can say, hey, how's the leg doing? But if they miss a couple weeks because they've been, grieving or having and grieving is a, a mental health issue, right?
Mhm.
And we all expect to grieve when we lose loved ones, right? But they are off for an extended period of time, nobody knows how to talk to that person when they come back in
No,
the office. And I
yeah,
was like, that is so right. Like, why are we just so uncompassionate or uneducated? And I know I would be guilty. I'd hide, right? If I saw somebody coming in after a loss of a mother or child, I wouldn't know what to say. There's a pretty good chance I'm going to be eating my toes, right? So
yeah. And then reverse that situation. How does that employee feel coming back into that environment and everyone's staring and oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. And they're avoiding them in the lunchroom or then they too feel uncomfortable in their own workplace, which let's be realistic, we spend more time in our workplaces than we do at home, awake at home. Um, so to be uncomfortable in that space is not going to help anybody. So that's what these conversations are just so important to give people the tools to deal with these hard situations, and then they don't become so hard anymore.
yeah, you're so right. I love your comment about people giving 100, they're giving 100%, right? Because I know today, I'm feeling pretty good, well rested after a weekend, I'm working pretty good, right? But if I, pick up a cold and my nose is going like crazy and I'm sneezing, I'm still going to go to work, right? Well, I work from home, so I don't have to worry about infecting
Yeah,
anybody else. But I can guarantee you that the amount of times that I tap on my keyboard or conversations that I have are not going to be as high as they were, today. So
yeah,
that's a really good awareness, right? That why aren't people performing and what's behind that, right? Now, if it's self-indulgement or whatever, then those are secondary issues. But you know,
yeah. But at the same time, if they self-indulged, maybe that is an addiction issue. What
mm,
is causing that addiction issue? Because Dr. Gabor Mate is an incredible Canadian doctor who talks a lot about addiction. And he's like, it's not why the addiction, it is why the hurt that is causing the addiction. So no matter what they're coming to work with, there's a deeper issue. Maybe they're going through a divorce and they're not coming to work and talking about it, but maybe last night was a really horrible night. I am a domestic violence survivor. There were a lot of nights that I was scared for my life in my own home. And then I had to try to be productive the next day. I had to try to parent my kids the next day. Like people are going through stuff and it's just getting worse since the pandemic. Um, Christmas is coming up right now. Domestic violence rates skyrocket over Christmas. when the pandemic happened and everybody's home, a lot of people don't feel safe at home.
Mhm.
So we have all these underlying issues that are affecting our people, and we don't know how to deal with them. And the
Mhm.
people don't know how to deal with them, and they don't think they can talk about it at work. And I think we really have to give the people the time to listen. Most of the time, people don't want you to solve their problem. They just want you to listen. They just want to be able to say, look, this is happening, and I'm sorry that I didn't get that report done last night, but I just couldn't wrap my brain around it. And be understanding about that, not go, oh my God, our company is going to fail because you didn't get that done. Um, and I know there are a lot of employers that don't have that empathy and compassion for what their people are going through.
Yeah, and statistically, if you look at how many people domestic abused are going through divorce, like if what the divorce rates hovers around 50%, right? You can't tell me
Yeah.
that people can go through divorces and not have an impact at work, right? So
Yeah,
it's the numbers to have off days are whatever the um whatever the incident is, right? It's there's I think more than enough excuses to be off. And from a work standpoint, and I've been dying to find this regional survey. I saw somebody quote saying that mental health is the highest growing expense in the workplace.
it
Um,
is billions of dollars that it's costing companies.
yeah, and so there's also a lot of people that would just rather avoid than deal with it, right? So even from a bigger perspective, not only just supporting that one person, but um, I know, and I'm trying to think of if there's a chance that you'd say this. So let me tell the story very
Sure.
carefully. So I know a friend that some time ago that worked hired a lot of summer students and ended up having a coworker, a senior in her office that took a real fancy to her, and she, um, I think, in 20 years later, she might say she might have been a little more friendly than she would have, but nothing physical or anything, just maybe had too many lunches with that person, and ended up the person was committed to a relationship with her and she wanted nothing to do with it. And so one day, after lunch with somebody else, she came back and her office was destroyed. And she just walked out. She just quit the job on the spot, wanted nothing to do with that job and but she couldn't talk to anybody in the organization to deal with this as it progressed and progressed. And right,
Right.
so every time she went to bring it to HR said, it's don't worry about it, don't and never dealt with it and she had nobody to talk to in her organization. She didn't know how to feel with it. And then finally when it exploded, she just left the company. No notice, no anything, didn't come back the next day. And so, if that's a bit extreme, but the cases of some people not showing up and not wanting to go back because they don't know how to face some people, means that you're hiring. It means that you're not productive at all for that position until you get somebody in there. So those are real costs to any business.
For sure. And, for those people who are involved to not feel supported, I mean, I think, the most profitable thing you can do for your business is to support your employees however you can. Because when they feel supported, like I said, and seen and understood, they are going to work harder for that company than if they feel like they're just a number that nobody cares about. And, you know, we talk about the stigma all the time, and I liked your example of if someone has a broken leg, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. But if someone has a broken mindset or a feeling that they can't get over anything mental health related, we don't look at it the same way. If someone had a heart attack, you know how you deal with it. But if someone was in the hospital with a mental health problem, we just kind of brush it off and try
Yeah.
to avoid those conversations, and we can't.
Yeah. So when you're talking to people or people find you, so this, I guess, question is, coming from an organization, um, what sort of struggles would I have internally? What would I be seeing? What sort of signs that I should engage, somebody like you to come in? What would be some red flags internally?
Well, first of all, I think if anybody thinks that their employees don't have some mental health issues, they're lying to themselves because I think someone in any organization does because the statistics are huge. Um, and also, we don't know what we don't know. So we don't even realize we don't have the tools. But red flags are, people who are disengaged, people who just aren't paying attention to their work, people who are chit-chatting around the water cooler and, starting little spats between employees, fellow employees. All those negative, I call them like junior high school kind of things, those are things that are affecting the mental health of our employees. Because if, Susie's gossiping about Joe and then someone goes back and tells Joe, like it's just this toxic thing that keeps brewing and brewing and brewing and it's causing issues. If someone walks in the door and they don't have a smile on their face, that's someone that you need to talk to because people should be happy to come to work. If, normally they walk in the door and go, "Hey, everybody," or whatever their normal greeting is, and they don't do it today, or they don't do it for a week, or they don't do it for, that's the things we have to notice is when all of a sudden someone's mood is very different than their norm. And then we have to start thinking, okay, is that something that's happening here, or is that something they're bringing with them? And it doesn't matter where it comes from, they need to be seen and heard and understood and know that they're supported in our workplaces. Or they're going to be like the person you gave the example. Someday they're just going to walk out
Hmm. Yeah, without
because,
reason, right? They'll just leave, and you'll
yeah,
never know.
eventually people will have enough of whatever
Yeah.
it is and feeling like they're not being supported and they'll leave. And
Hmm.
I just actually was listening to a podcast this morning and that was talking about things like this that, if people aren't feeling supported, then they can go get another job. If, if you are not listening to your team members and they have some brilliant ideas, but you don't think that's going to work, they can take those ideas to another company. And, because sometimes we just get so set in a plan or, it's that controlling personality that many leaders have because that's how we get to be leaders. But we sometimes have to step back for a minute and think, all right, maybe these other people do know what they're talking about. And maybe I need to be more human and less, you know, controlling and drill sergeant and whatever, you want to call that. But I think we really have to give people more credit and help them and understand the people we work with every day.
Yeah, and so this really, if let's think of an organization, right? Think of a structure of an organization, department heads or people that run the departments, and a good chunk of these, they might have what, 12 people on a team. The people that need to know this are the line managers, right? It's not us in HR, right?
No,
Or we can get it, but if our line managers don't get it, that's the first defense for these folks, right? They're the ones that they have to tell why they're late in the morning, or why they didn't hit enough buttons or whatever that day, right? That they're the ones that they have to talk to. So the line managers in organizations need to need to have the tools, not just HR. And
Yeah.
structurally speaking, as hard as this is to say, statistically, those are old white men, right? And so old
Yeah.
white men don't have those tools. Like coming from an
No,
old white
because
man, nobody taught
yeah,
me it, right?
no, because you guys were be a man.
Hmm.
You were taught not to have emotions. And, of the genders, the men were the ones who were like, tough it out. No, boys don't cry. Boys don't talk about their emotions. I have two brothers, and that was drilled into them from the time I can remember. And, the other person or people that I would argue also need to have a little training in this is your front end people, that receptionist that sees everybody who walks in the door. Those people can pick up things faster than anybody else, and you need to be able to have an open line of communication with those people that receptionist can come to management and say, I noticed so and so was really off this morning, and that everyone knows that they have permission to talk about that. And it's about giving people permission to just be real, and that there's not repercussions because the receptionist went to the manager and tattled on somebody, like that. It's not that type of conversation. That it's, I've been noticing that, you've been off for a few days. Is there anything that we can help with?
Hmm.
Um, I'm here to listen, because like I said, a lot of people don't want you to solve a problem. They just need somebody to listen.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And just absolutely ignorance and awareness amongst some folks in that. And I have probably the worst story that's going to throw me under the bus on this, so please don't judge me because I realize it.
No
And
judgment
I
here
and
ever.
I'm yeah. What's that TikTok trend? No judgment. You have to do it with me. I can't remember how it goes, but
I
um.
don't know.
So one time in marriage counseling, um, and we were talking about our feelings, and my wife was very upset. And I remember going home in the car, and she's like, "You just never share your feelings." And by the way, I'm 1,000 times better now. And I actually said, "You're crying. I'm not. Feelings don't look fun, more or less." Right. And it was just like, when I think of how absolutely like ignorant and stupid that is in the whole scheme of things. I'm embarrassed to say it. I may actually edit this part of the video, but it's
No, don't. It's valuable.
yeah, yeah, but it was just such a. I look back and I'm like, that is just like the silliest thing that I could have possibly have said, right? And
Well, I can relate. I have a good friend who's from PEI who is a farmer, and he prides himself in having no emotion. And I throw him under the bus almost every time I do a speech, because I have been pushing him. I've known him for 6 or so years. And I'm like, no, you do have emotions. We all do. And he goes, I have three emotions. And I said, what? He goes, happy, hungry, and horny. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, no. But that's how men were programmed. I said, who hurt you as a child? He goes, nobody. And I said, no, I know that your father, may he rest in peace, when you were a child, did not let you cry, did not let you be hurt, did not let you show any emotion. And that is why you are who you are today. And of course, he denies it because he never really liked his father. But um, it's it's not your fault. It's how you were brought up. And one of the things I talk about is these voices we have in our head, all of this mindset that we have about things. Most of it was programmed in us before we were 7 years old. Science shows that. So we are not believing things we believe. We are believing things the adults around us in our early years believed. And a lot of us don't work to try to change that as we've grown into adults. A lot of us just still believe those things. And I'm the limit pusher in my family, so I'm also the black sheep that did kind of push the limits and go, wait, do we really have to do it that way still? And, you know, that's kind of the generation we're getting into now are these limit pushers and the breakers of the generational curses, who are starting to see things differently. And those are the people we have coming into our workplaces, and we need to kind of grow with them because times are changing and we have to too.
Yeah, and really, if you look at the demographics, right? The they're just changing. The millennials, the Z's, the X's, you're not speaking their language, right? If
No.
give all, we can criticize them on the thousand and one things, and older people often do. But the reality is, so many of the younger folks are way better in touch with their feelings and their emotions
Yes.
and their standards than anybody over 50.
Yeah, because they had the people around them that said, how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
And we didn't. I'm 51. We didn't have that. And um, they're they're also the ones who everybody got a red ribbon.
Mhm.
And, so they're coming at life very differently than we did. Um, back in the 90s when I joined the workforce, it was very different. And we have to understand that these are the people we're working with, and they want to have conversations about their feelings. That they want to be heard and seen, and they don't believe that work is work and home is home. It's life, and
Mhm.
it all melds together for them.
No, absolutely. Well, so Karen, so tell me about your business and that in a dream world, you get to go all over the place and speak at conferences and large sessions and preach the word on resiliency,
Mm.
right?
Uh, yeah, that's my goal. I repeatedly say I want to be Oprah or like Oprah, um, because of the positive impact that she has made on so many people. And that's what I'm trying to do as well, is I've been through a lot in my personal life while growing successful businesses. And I know and people tell me that my stories are so relatable because it's real stuff that people go through every day. And I just want people to feel like they're not alone, and I want to help them get the tools to know that life can be really crappy, but it can also be really good at the same time. It can be both things. My son was getting chemotherapy during COVID. He was diagnosed at the end of June of 2020. He was 19. I'm a single mom with no support at all. So because he was, 19 at the time and with COVID restrictions, I wasn't allowed to go in the hospital with him because he was considered an adult. So that was a really scary time for me. But instead of dwelling on the negative, I published a book that became a Canadian bestseller while I sat in my truck in the parking lot. And I want people to know that they also have the tools to take something really bad and do something really good. And we all have that ability to do that, to take our pain and turn it into a purpose.
Mhm.
So, and I don't think most of us were not taught that. Most of us dwell on the negative and think, "Oh my gosh, this is terrible." And my son also, the same son, I only have one. When he was 8 weeks old, they told me he had been born with a permanent brain injury and he's probably never going to walk or talk. Most people would believe those doctors and just give up. I did not. I got every amount of professional help I could find for him. And his brain, he's now 24. His brain still looks like that if they do a CT scan or an MRI. But no offense, I say he's as normal as men get. But
I don't know if that's taken.
he he is. He walks, he talks, he has a job driving a haul truck in a gypsum mine. He, graduated from high school with decent marks. He wasn't, the best student, but he just was school wasn't his thing. He likes big machinery. And so the mindset that I put in him as a tiny human he carried with him. And when he was diagnosed with cancer, he didn't even get upset. He just said, "Get this shit out of me so I can go back to work."
Mm,
And he had 6 rounds of chemotherapy and 25 rounds of radiation, which should have burnt him like the worst sunburn you can imagine. And he had almost no side effects. He had no side effects at all from radiation. His skin didn't even get red. And he vomited 3 times during chemotherapy and was tired. That was it. That were the only illness that he had from that entire cancer treatment. And I said, he's probably the only person on the planet that thinks cancer is a minor inconvenience. So the power of our minds and the power of someone believing in us like I did him as a tiny human is just phenomenal. And I think we really need to believe that about ourselves and about our people a lot more.
yeah, you're awesome. No wonder why you come highly recommended.
I have a lot more stories. That's just one.
Well, you are
Uh,
from the East Coast, so that if you don't have stories, then you should not be living down there.
I've lived here my entire life and I've been through a lot. So I say I don't teach resilience from things I've read in a book, which I have read a lot of books about it too, but I teach from my own experience of living through some really terrible things and turning my life into something amazing. And I think that we all need to have that mindset when it comes to the tough times that we are inevitably going to have in our lives.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, um, we are going to have our parents die, right?
Yes.
And that's just it. We're gonna have pets that die. You know, when you buy a
Yeah.
dog, it's got a 8, 12 year lifespan, depending on the breed. These things happen, right? Now, we nobody wants their kids to, you know, go before them, but that can happen too, right?
And to have your son come home and tell you he has cancer. Um, my daughter, when she was 14, had her lungs spontaneously collapse at school one day. We spent 6 days in the hospital and it magically healed 8 hours before she was supposed to have surgery. A year later, when she was 15, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. She was almost in a wheelchair before we got that diagnosis. The next weekend, she went to PEI and showed a dairy cow. When she couldn't walk one weekend, the next weekend she was showing her calf. So mindset is so huge. And I think, when I do my speeches and workshops, I don't just talk about this doesn't help us as leaders. It doesn't just help our people here. But when our people go home and teach these tools or role model these things for their children, our next generation now has those tools to deal with these things. And we may someday get out of this mental health crisis that we're in if we can teach our people how to deal with the hard things in a healthier way.
Brilliant. And so, Karen's going to provide me a link. This is instructions for you. You're going to provide me details and a link to your book and how to contact you.
For sure.
All those good things. And yeah, reach out if anybody's looking to have a conversation in an organization. I'm pretty sure that
Yes.
Karen's got something that might be a good fit for you.
For sure. And it's pretty easy. It's KarenDeanspeaks.com. But I will send you the link and everything you need to know about me is on there. Well, not everything, but all about the business is on there.
Yeah,
And
the
links to
the
my book.
cows the cows aren't on there, so
No, I do. I don't have the dairy farm anymore. I have a hobby farm now. I call it the Feel Good Farm. And I call them my therapy animals. I have a horse, a miniature donkey, and 2 goats.
yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, they are.
Uh,
The donkey is actually the best therapist on the planet. He is so intuitive.
oh, is that right? Well,
Yes.
the donkeys have a purpose. I spent my fair amount of time on in and around farms, and we had a hobby farm when we grew up. We were more chickens and turkeys and ducks. Um, Nothing big. Nothing big.
Right. Well, I've had the donkey, I've had all of them except the big horse since they were weaned from their moms. So I'm their person. And the donkey, especially if he knows I'm having a mentally hard day, he will block me from walking past him until I hug him. And when he feels me relax, then he will let me walk away. And he tries to do it to my daughter, but she doesn't hug him, so he's given up on her. But she would come in the house going, "Your stupid donkey wouldn't get out of my way." I said, "He's trying to help." But he knows if I'm having a good day, he's fine. I just walk past him. But if he knows I'm not feeling well, he is in front of me and will not let me get by him.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Well,
animals are.
and congratulations for having the awareness just even to recognize something like that, man.
I try to promote people noticing the things, the little things around them. It's part of what I talk about too, is if we can be grateful for those little things that are around us, it really can change our day. Even if it's the full moon last night was incredible, a beautiful sunset, a garden you walk past on your way to work. If you just stop and take even 30 seconds to just appreciate that beauty around you, whatever that might be, whatever you enjoy, it can really change your mindset for the entire day. And I think we get so caught up in our hustle, 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 hustle culture that we don't stop and recognize everything that's around us that could really make our day better.
Yeah, that's so true. Awareness is a big. My wife actually has a really good awareness, and I don't, right? And so I'll tell you, so funny. And one of my stepchildren has amazing awareness. So over the weekend, we were doing some cleaning, and we had, our water that you boil pasta in. We bought a new pot, and we were filling them both up and boiling them. Well, my wife and I both like the one burner on the right of the stove. And the stove's about 4 years old. And, she says because she's right-handed. I said because I think it works better. And so we noticed the burner on the left, right? It burned or it boiled the water like 3 or 4 minutes faster than the burner on the right. So I said, well, it's just got to be the pot, right? The density of the pot. So when the pot's cooled down the next day, I flipped the pans around, had the same amount of water in, and did it again, and they actually boiled at the same time. Showing the new pot we got cooks water much faster. And so the kid comes down, and I said, "Hey, look, we did this fun experiment, right?" And, and he goes, "Well, it should. It says right there for rapid boiling." Right? On the ring of the burner that we have cleaned every time we've used the glass top on the stove, we literally, have to wipe right over this. And my
Yeah.
wife and I both went like, I'm sorry, what? And like, and so she didn't believe me, and I had to go take a look. And here's this kid that can only boil water, tells us, of
Right.
course, that's the one, right? It says right on it, rapid boiling, right? So sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and awareness is a good thing. So
Yeah, just to notice the little things around you can really change your day.
yeah, totally. All right, I appreciate your time, Karen.
Thank
And
you.
I'd love to talk to you anytime you want. Anything you have that you think's important, you just book a time and we can chat about whatever insights you found or what you've learned. And keep up the good work. I think what
Thank
you're
you.
doing is amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.